All right, I think we're live. Hey everyone, Tom Hazzard here. Podetize, feed your brand, and today I've got, I think, a very good subject to share with everyone. And this one always surprises me how many people don't realize how important this is. So I'm going to record this as an episode of Feed Your Brand, and then happy to have some Q&A discussion of anything anybody has they would like support with after. I think this will be 15 or 20 minutes. I don't think it's going to be that long of a subject. And let's see, hold on. All right, make sure I got the settings right for the video part. I think I just got that switched. All right. Hey, welcome Scott. Welcome Malik. All right, gonna go here on on my topic, and then have some Q&A and discussion after that. Hey there, welcome back to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazzard, your host, and today I want to talk about a very important subject every podcaster needs to be aware of. This doesn't matter if you're preparing to launch a podcast, or you've just launched a podcast, or if you've been podcasting for many years. This holds true for everyone. I want to talk about consistency in publishing episodes. This is the single most important issue and aspect of your show you have control of as the host that is going to help grow and or maintain your listening audience in the short term and the long term. It always surprises me how many people think it's no big deal. Hey, I can skip here or there, or I can take a long break. Now, don't get me wrong. You've been podcasting for years and you want to pivot your strategy either with your show as a whole, or you want to pivot, whether you're going to podcast or not, or, you're making a big change in your business and you just don't have the time to do it anymore and you're going to stop. I mean, by all means, take a break or stop. However, I'm here to tell you that the most successful podcasts show up consistently for their listeners, whatever their normal cadence is of publishing. If it's consistent, it will serve you best. It will serve your listeners best. Their expectation of you showing up for them on a regular basis is maintained. But if you don't show up consistently, and I'm going to give you several examples here because I've experienced this with, a lot of podcasters when I meet them and do an audit of their show, and they wonder why they're not getting more out of their podcast. And I look, well, you haven't published an episode in almost 3 months. And others, maybe they did publish the last few weeks, but I look back at the history of the last 6 months, they published a total of 8 episodes. And when I look at the timing of them, they're not consistent at all. What I want everyone to understand is how important consistency is. Now, that doesn't mean, hopefully all of you who are already podcasting know this, and those that are researching and considering launching a show, you need to understand what's wonderful about podcasting. You do it on your time. This is not radio. You don't have to show up at 3 p.m. every Thursday because that's your slot. And if you don't show up live, no one's going to hear you. It's absolutely not that. I love podcasting because, well, to an extent, it's on-demand listening. Listeners will listen when they want to listen, regardless of when you publish. But if somebody has subscribed to your show and they've said, all right, I choose you. I see you've been publishing episodes for a long time, once a week. They have the expectation you're going to show up for them once a week on their app that day, whether your day is Monday, Thursday, Wednesday, does not matter. I actually have, after thousands of shows, supporting thousands of shows, don't believe there's really any better day to publish an episode. I really don't. People are going to listen when they want to listen, but pick your day, and that's your day, and show up consistently. Because when you stop showing up consistently, if you publish randomly here and there, you're not giving your listener anything to expect. They feel that you're flaky, you're inconsistent, you're not showing up for them on a regular basis. So whatever your cadence is, and I do recommend, to really grow and maintain an audience the best way possible, I believe you need to show up at minimum weekly for your guest. I believe you should publish once a week. Now, there are those that say, that's too much for me, I can't do that. Okay, every other week, whatever it is, show up consistently. I have one show that publishes the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And that's a little weird, because some months there's 5 Tuesdays, some months there's 2 Tuesdays. I don't really like that so much, but that's what they've been doing even before they were working with us. So that's what they do. It does create some inconsistency. I mean, yeah, you get 2 episodes a month, but sometimes there might be 2 weeks between an episode, and other times there might be 3 weeks between an episode, because of the length of the month and where that day of the week that you publish falls within, the context of the whole month. But consistency, I truly believe a weekly show is what podcast listeners on the whole are looking for and wanting. And you don't have to do it every week. You can binge record. You can, set up one day a month and record 6 episodes and schedule them to publish each of the next 6 weeks, and get your breathing room. So this is one thing you do to reach your audience, to provide them content. It's one thing you might do for, if it's a context of a part of your business. It's not the dominant thing you're having to do in your business. Most podcast hosts who are in business, they have some expertise and something they do to make money, and you need to spend the lion's share of your time doing that. Podcasting is one thing you do to support your community, or lead generate, or raise awareness of who you are for your business. It doesn't have to be all that you do. But what is important, if you want to actually have podcast listeners choose you more, then show them through the history of your show that you've showed up consistently. Now, I'm going to share a little trick with you on Tracy's show, The Binge Factor. In 2022, Tracy got quite busy and didn't really consistently show up every week. And she saw a drop off in listenership and said, all right, I'm going to fix this. And I need to practice what I preach, because Tracy and I talk about this, whether it's, in this episode or just with anyone we talk to about podcasting, we talk about how important consistency is. So what Tracy's been doing is publishing more episodes new, like literally 2 a week, 3 a week, some weeks on the Binge Factor, and publishing them new now so that her audience gets that content. And they've been getting more content lately. But then a week after those episodes have published, she's taking one of those 2 that week and backdating it to fill in a gap in the past. So everybody new subscribing gets it right away. But then she's moving it, and some of those weeks where she didn't have one that was published in 2022, one of those episodes is being moved back to fill that gap. And the reason is so that after a couple of months of catching up, if people look back at the Binge Factor, they're going to see there's not a week in 2022 that there wasn't an episode. And that's to make the impression to show new listeners finding the show, when they look back at the history, oh, wow, she's published every week on this day. She's been very consistent. And it sets the expectation that she's going to keep showing up every week going forward, which is her intent. And so it is just, I can't tell you how critical it is. People come to me and it's like, well, I don't have many people listening to my podcast. And I ask, well, let's look at your show. And they've published 6 episodes, and they published them all on one day last year sometime. And they're kind of wondering why nobody is listening to their show. Well, you're not really continuing to publish. You're not continuing to show up. I mean, this is not Netflix, and I really think that the vast majority of shows, with very few exceptions, and there are some exceptions, I'm not really going to go into detail on that now, where having a show that you record a limited set of episodes and drop it in a bunch all at once may make sense. But if you're intending to be successful in podcasting in the long run, I very, very strongly recommend you do not do that. One of the most successful shows that we've ever supported is called Passive Real Estate Investing with Marco Santarelli. He's the host. Publishes 1 episode a week. He's only done 1 episode a week, but his show is always a top-ranked show on Apple. It's because he's been doing it for like 7 or 8 years, showing up every week, and is a very popular subject matter. But my point in sharing with you about his show is not to say you need to show up in the top charts on Apple too. I really don't. I mean, there's too many shows. Everybody can't be there. But it's to say that the shows that continue to show up weekly, week after week, month after month, year after year, get the most traction, have the most loyal listeners. People are coming back and listening. And your show will eventually, if you do that, achieve great success within your niche, and be rewarded, is what I'm saying. Your show will be rewarded with larger listenership, with more people going to your website for your show, reaching out to you, engaging with you. You show up consistently. It's important. So what I'm trying to say is you don't have to do 5 episodes a week or 3 episodes a week or 2 episodes a week in order to achieve some of those goals, in order to rise in the charts. You don't. You can do 1 episode a week, but you're just going to have to do it for a longer period of time. So people often, say, well, I record a bunch of episodes, and when I have 3 or 4 done, I just have someone put them up, and I don't know how they do it. They just put them up. And I see this as a pattern in shows. I'll evaluate a show. And in October, they published 4 episodes, but they were all on the same day. And then in November, they published 3 episodes, but again, they were all on the same day. There's a real inconsistency of not only how many episodes that are published, but how often they're published. And people don't always think about this. And it kind of shocks me how many shows I find like this. And that's why I'm spending the time today helping to share this with you and recommend you do not do it. Please pick a day of the week, or if it's not going to be every week, every other week, pick a day of the week and show up and publish. Show up on their phone. It's not so much about you. I understand, hey, we all get busy. We want to take a break during the holidays, not have to worry about publishing. That's great. I got news for you. I do that too. But I've recorded and banked up 6 episodes before I get to the holidays so that I can keep publishing 1 a week and show up for my listener. It's really less about you. When it comes to listeners, it's all about them. What's in it for them? And if you stop showing up consistently for them, they're going to go find someone else to listen to. They're going to go find another show and subscribe to that show. It's, really very similar to what we see happening in television. I mean, I know all of you may not be television watchers, but I'm sure some of you are. I like to listen to some of the late night comedy, or watch, I guess, some of the late night comedy shows that come on at, usually 11:30, or depending on your time zone, maybe 10:30 at night. And nothing frustrates me more than getting ready to watch, and I go show up and turn it on, and you know what? This week they're not publishing. They're rerunning an episode. I hate reruns. I almost wish they wouldn't put the show on at all, because it doesn't lead me to believe there's going to be a new one tonight, because it's going to air, but it's an old one. I really wish they would even pre-record some to run during that week they're going to be off. Everybody needs a break, but that doesn't happen in television. It's much more expensive to put out a television show, so I get that. But in podcasting, it's not that hard for us as podcasters to pre-record episodes, bank up enough of them that we can take whatever kind of break we want. We can check out and not think about recording episodes for weeks or a month or more, but we can still show up for our listeners. And if you want a loyal audience, that's what you need to do. That's my strong opinion. I'm a big believer in it. And there are other benefits to it also beyond just podcast listenership through the apps. There's benefits to showing up in social media with clips from that episode, or quote graphics, or maybe a video meme if you do yours as video as well, that you can schedule ahead of time. There are tools that let you schedule social media posts ahead of time, and so you're showing up there on social media, so your presence is still there. And there's also benefits for your own website. If you're putting a blog for each episode out there, Google, the consistency and the authority you get for your website through Google for continuing to publish a new blog every week is also invaluable. And this is a marathon, folks. Podcasting is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I'm going to tell you one other little thing I experienced in the last week from recording this that was really jaw-dropping for me. I'm always meeting new prospects of podcasters, and especially authors that are going to publish a book, and they've purchased a service from a company to help them with either publishing and launching their book, or they've just decided to publish a book a different way, and they're working with a PR agency to help raise awareness of the book in advance of it publishing and then when it's first released. So I had this experience in the last week. Someone that came to know us through a referral, an organization we're a part of, and they scheduled a call with me and their PR agency. And the PR agency had sold this person on a great way to market your book is to launch a podcast. Now, so far, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I may disagree on the timing. I think you should launch the podcast way in advance of the book coming out, so you actually have time to build a listening audience before you try to raise awareness of that book. Because if the book's already out and you launch a podcast, you don't have any listeners at first. So, I mean, that's not going to set the world on fire with raising awareness of your book. But anyway, I'll move on, because that's sort of a side point. The main point is this PR agency said, "Oh, we'll help you launch a podcast. We know how to do that. And you need to record just 6 episodes. That's all, just 6. And we'll drop all those 6, just about when the book launches. And you're a podcast host and an author, and that's going to help you." And I'm like, really? That's going to help you? I mean, you're going to get a little bit of organic play and awareness through the listening apps if you put out a 6-episode series, or 6 episodes of a podcast, and you drop them all at once. But if you're not going to come back and keep producing any new content, that podcast is not going to set the world on fire. I don't care how good those episodes are or who you are. Podcast is a long game. Podcasting is a long game. It is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not a quick hit. You're not going to get a shot of adrenaline for much just by putting 6 episodes out and never doing any more. I mean, unless you're somebody incredibly famous and people are going to know about them because you're already well known. But that's not what most of us are doing with podcasting. We're usually not already well known. We are using podcasting to raise awareness of who we are, to elevate our level of authority as a center of influence in our niche, in our area of expertise. And to be found by more of our ideal listeners, potential customers, and many more sort of facets of that. But by showing up and serving first is how you build it, and you've got to do it consistently. Okay, so I'm not going to belabor that point anymore. I think I've made my point or expressed my opinion. I'm sticking to it. I highly recommend all of you show up consistently, publish regularly for your listeners, show up for them. You will be rewarded for it. Anything else, you're podcasting probably, I guess, more for other reasons than what I would say are the best reasons. And it's just not going to achieve your goals at the end of the day if you don't do that. All right. So there you go. I hope you find value in this. We have a lot of other great episodes and topics at our website for Feed Your Brand, which is podetize.com. You go to podetize.com, right at the top. There is a menu item for podcasts. You can click on Feed Your Brand, click into any of the episode blogs, and then there's this great search feature. So if you have a question about anything regarding podcasting, type in that search. It's going to bring up our history of all of our episodes and topics we've covered, and hopefully we've covered the topic that you need support with. And if we haven't, reach out to us on social media, anywhere at Feed Your Brand, or as a contact form on podetize.com. Make a suggestion. We'd love to hear from you and address a subject that you need support on in a future episode. All right. Until then, this is Tom signing off for Feed Your Brand. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. I didn't say that well. I'm not going to see you on the next episode. You're going to hear me, but anyway, maybe I'll cut that out. All right.
We
So
do that on our podcast all the time.
I know, isn't it? Well, we're doing video also.
You are doing video. We don't do video. I'll say that.
Yeah. All right. So those of you that joined live, thank you for being here. Nice to see you all.
Linda on Facebook says hi as well.
Who's that?
Linda Banner on Facebook.
Okay, great. Actually, I emailed her recently because I got a spam email from somebody I think had hijacked her account, and I reached out to her to warn her about that. Hopefully she got that message and it didn't end up in her junk folder.
Yeah.
It's a very clever phishing email. Hey, Kevin, good afternoon. Anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments, things you'd like to share? Now's the time. I'd love to support you in any way I can. Stats about those with specific consistency numbers. I have some, sure. I mean, I can give you, let me give you two examples. And one is Consulting Success Podcast with Michael Zapersky. He's been doing it for about 5 years. He's gotten over 250 episodes. Now, it doesn't have to take that long. I'm going to give you two examples. This one's a longer term example. Weekly show, consistently. Michael's like clockwork, showing up. And for him, between 150 and 200 episodes, boy, it exploded. He now consistently gets over 50,000 downloads a month of his episodes, but his website is also killing it. And he has over 10,000 keyword rankings that he ranks on, and he's getting 15 to 20,000 unique visitors to his site every month. And the only content on his website are the podcast blogs. So that consistency really does pay off. It gets to a volume where Google trusts, and that's wonderful. Now let me give you a new example, a new podcast, which I'm going to tell you how many episodes in they are. I just have to pull it up. Relatively new podcaster, started in September 2022. So I would say 5 months in, maybe barely 5 months in, and 23 episodes published. And the consistency and quality of content has started to tip. Now, I'm going to share some numbers. I know this person, and she's okay with me sharing her numbers. I know that because I've asked her already. Initially, in the first 5 months, the number of plays you would think haven't set the world on fire. Okay. Because in 5 months and 23 episodes, a total of 2,712 plays or downloads. But in the last 30 days, 1,056. So what I'm here to tell you is in the last month, that consistency is starting to pay off, because what that means is 1,056 divided by 2,712 is 39% of the all-time plays of this podcast have occurred in the last month. That's huge. That's growth, significant growth on that show. And it also is showing up in the keyword rankings for the website. Last October, the show and the website were very new. 4 keyword phrases the website ranked on. Today, 121. And the growth curve is similar, tracking with those podcast listens. So that's why I'm saying this is a marathon, not a sprint. You can't say, I'm going to be a podcaster, drop 6 episodes and expect anyone to really find you, know about you, and get a long-term value, and for you to get any kind of long-term value from them. You can't just, it's not a one and done thing. And I'll tell you, this person that I met with who was launching a book was sold on the idea that it would be one and done and it would help her market her book. Now she understands now, and she has decided to not stop at those 6 episodes, but to keep going. And she is going to publish every other week. She believes that's all she can handle. And you know what? That's fine. But I think that's a whole lot better. She's going to get a lot more out of it than doing 6 and being done. So the blog posts, yes, Kevin, helped tremendously on the website. No doubt about it. I mean, this is the thing that Tracy and I believed back 8 years ago when we started our first podcast, and we tested it and learned and experienced 100%. The blog post is huge. I can't state this clearly enough. We've seen it, case study after case study, business after business, podcast after podcast. If you leave it as an audio show only, you are going to have listeners. You're going to be found by people that have decided they want to listen to a podcast, and something they searched on was a match for what's in your podcast show description or one of your episode descriptions. But that's such a small amount of information. If you don't convert every episode to a blog, you are missing out on a huge opportunity to be found by more of your ideal listeners, ideal prospects, ideal customers. Because just think about it. You get like 4,000 characters for your description of your podcast show. Characters, not even words. So every blog post, let's say you have 30-minute podcast episodes. The speed at which most people speak, which is 150 words a minute, unless you're Scott Carson and you're north of 200. But the typical person, 150 words a minute. Your half-hour podcast is going to be at least a 4,000 word blog post the way we would recommend doing it. 4,000 words that Google is going to scan through and find, oh, this phrase, 120,000 people searched on last month. This other phrase, 80,000 people searched on last month. There are phrases people search on, 500,000 times a month. Google will then associate your blog post with those searches in the future. So your blog comes up in the list when people search on Google. Guarantee you, no matter, look, I love podcasting, folks. I'm all in on it. Obviously, I live and breathe it. I'm a host on many shows myself. But there are an awful lot more people searching to learn, to meet their needs, to research things on Google every day than there are searching in their podcast app. More people are going to find you through your website and through that blog content than are going to find you by going to a listening app and searching. If they already knew you or they saw something on social media, great, you won the battle. They know who you are. They'll go find you. They'll find your show. They'll start listening. That's great. Social media promotion is hugely important and a big part of raising awareness of your show. So is leveraging guests who you interview to share their appearance on your show, and you also going as a guest on other shows. All these are great tactics to have people find your show. But a very passive way to do it is have that comprehensive, what we call verbal SEO blog post for every episode on your website. Long-term gains. So I real quick, I'll just say, I used it as an example the other day. So I am on a live call with a prospect. They have 100 plus episodes, no blogs. And I said, here, go to Google, search on this term, worst podcast websites. I had them search on it live. I didn't even, I know it was there because I'd done it a few weeks ago. They search on that topic. A Feed Your Brand episode from May or April of 2018 is the very first search result on the first page of Google. You can do it now if you want. And it's a Feed Your Brand episode. It's an old Feed Your Brand episode. Our logo was different than this one back then, but it's still a valuable piece of content. And people find us for it all the time. That's the long-term value of your podcast being consistent, but also what we call multicasting your content, putting it out in all those forms. So, okay, thanks, Kevin, letting me know that. I am going to look into that. Cody, you see that message there? Let's
Yes, I do.
look into that, talk
Of
with
course.
all the appropriate people and see where that's going on,
Yep.
what's going on there. So, Kevin, I'd be thrilled for you to get that value, and we're going to make sure you do. But consistency is key. And that's even true. You know, I talked on Feed Your Brand really mostly about the benefits for the podcast itself, which is true and real. A lot of do-it-yourself podcasters don't have a real website for their show, or if they do, it's a landing page and it's just some info about the show. They don't have blogs. But Google rewards for your website, and whether it's a blog for your podcast episode or you write blogs the conventional way of just thinking and typing, and you write a blog once a week or once a month, whatever. Google rewards websites that publish new content consistently. And there's a lot to it. There's a lot of qualities of a blog that make a difference in how long it is in terms of words and all that. I mean, there's a lot to dig into on that, but the consistency of publishing on a regular basis on your website is also important in the eyes of Google. Google trusts you more if this happens too. Somebody will buy 25 blogs for their past episodes or 50 from us to get a better price. We do all those blogs, but we don't dump them all on the website at once. That would not serve the client in the best way. We would, if you've got 50 and you want to accelerate your keyword value on the website, we publish 1 per weekday, 5 a week. And if you're publishing a new episode and there's a blog for that at the same time, we'll just do 4 a week. We'll publish 1 per weekday. In some cases, if they really want to do it, we'll publish every day of the week, 7 days a week. But the point is, Google sees the volume and the consistency. You don't want to dump them all at once, because Google never knows if you're going to do it again. It's like, boom, there's a big hit of all this content. Well, great. It'll read that content. It'll still scan it, associate it with keywords, rank it, and send traffic to your site. But if you build that over time and you build that trust and you keep growing it consistently, week after week, whatever number of episode or whatever number of blogs, whether they're episode blogs or not, you're publishing, you do it consistently, Google gives you much higher rankings, more authority, sends more traffic to your website when you do it consistently. So that is important on a blog, just like it is in a podcast. Now, they're for different reasons in a podcast. I want to be clear about this. With the blog, we're looking for being in alignment with Google's algorithm, Google's rules, what Google wants to see. In podcasting, it's psychological for your listener, in them trusting you, believing you're going to continue showing up for them on a regular basis. It builds loyalty, it breeds trust. It's different reasons that we're doing that with the podcast episode publication, because there's not an algorithm, well, other than the charts. I mean, the charts are looking at consistency, but the charts is still kind of a vanity metric. There's tons of successful podcasts that aren't in the top 50 or the top 10 on their category in Apple. It's a nice to have. I don't think it's an absolutely need to have benefit. It's nice if it's there. You can screenshot it, make some noise about it on social media, by all means. But more important, it's really psychological with the listeners. And keep in mind, I mean, more people that listen to your show because you're showing up every week and providing them value are going to tell their friends about your show, podcast. Oh, you know what? I listen to this podcast. You really should, you should give it a try. You might like it too. So obviously no one's going to do that if you haven't published an episode in a month, or you're very inconsistent. You don't know when or if. They don't know when or if you're ever going to publish one. So I just wanted to be clear. There's different reasons and benefits for publishing consistently, website versus podcast, but they all benefit from the same consistency, just different ways. So I hope that's helpful. Any other questions, thoughts? Let's see what's been going on lately.
Linda says that she'll have to take a look at the email that you're talking about, but she believes that's definitely phishing because she hasn't emailed you for a while.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I knew she hadn't
Good heads
emailed
up,
me.
yeah.
So you know what? Hey, nobody has any other questions? All right, I have a question, but after I answer that question, I want to come back to this email phishing thing, because we see
Yeah.
a lot of it, and I've seen a lot of very clever email scams. And you know what? Just in providing, I think, helpful, valuable service to our community, I'm going to mention what some of those are, because we see a lot of them. But Scott's asking, which podcasting events will we be attending in the next few months? Outliers Podcast Festival will be in LA in May, and we're attending that. We sponsor that event, so we will be there in person. Tracy will be speaking. So if you're close enough to LA, and it's a small event, you're going to be there, Scott? You're going to be in LA? Awesome. Oh, you are speaking. Awesome. Look forward to seeing you there.
Nice.
That's obviously, it's close to, it's a smaller event. It's not an overwhelming event, but I think a high quality event. So we are fans of that one. So that's in LA in May. Trying to remember which other ones are coming up. Not really planning to go to Podcast Movement, but it is in Vegas and it's close enough to drive, and maybe we'll go there. I haven't been in a couple of years. Actually, Scott, since you and me and Dan Zatowski were at the one in Philadelphia, I haven't been to Podcast Movement. It's more of a corporate event. You're emceeing a room. Great. That'll be fun, Scott. All right. We'll have to consider that one. Tracy and I are finding that the podcasting events aren't as valuable for us as other kind of business events. We find an awful lot of do-it-yourself podcasters at these events, more so than ones that need done-for-you support. And so anyway, we've not been like signing up to attend or to sponsor every event. But anyway, I sort of go back and forth on that one. We've been going to a lot of more local meetups in California too, different events for podcasting, which have been fun and getting some value out of. So I'll think if there's any other events I'm not remembering. Well, okay, so let me go back to email phishing. So I got this email this week, supposedly sent by a prospect, not even a customer, but somebody I have met with. And it was in reply to an email I sent. I could see the email I had sent her after our meeting, but the email was not sent by her email address. The reply to email address on this was something I had never seen before. And it had kind of a generic response that it was trying to be something that would make sense to respond to the email I sent, but it clearly was not sent by this person. It was a clever email. Once I realized it was a phishing email, I was concerned because they actually had the email I sent this person. They were replying to it or using it as if they were, it was her, the prospect replying to me. I'm like, uh-oh, this is a problem. So I ended up forwarding that email to that prospect saying, hey, I don't think you really sent me an email, but look below. I think you may need to change your email password. Somebody may have hacked your email account. It's clearly a malicious email. Just beware. So I was trying to provide the helpful information. But so lately we get a lot of these very predatory phishing emails that would have you believe they're being sent by Microsoft Office 365, something about your Office account, or the most clever one I've seen lately was a phishing email that looked like somebody sent me a DocuSign document to sign. And another one was a DocuSign, like as if it was a final receipt. Oh, your document has been completed. Here it is. Click this link to download your document. And like most people, I've used DocuSign quite a bit. I mean, probably only 4 or 5 times a year. I don't have one I do every week or every month, but I use DocuSign enough that if I see an email from DocuSign, I'll pay attention to it and think that I need to take action on it, because usually there's something time sensitive going on there. Well, this predatory company had completely hijacked DocuSign's identity. The email looked like theirs, but if you hovered over any of those buttons or links in the emails and you saw where it was going to take you, it had nothing to do with DocuSign. And I probably would have given them the keys to the castle of my computer had I clicked on them. So this is just a friendly awareness message to all of you. Beware of any email that you receive. If it looks suspicious, it probably is. Just before you go clicking on anything, make sure this is somebody you do business with, that there's an obvious reason that you think you need to do this. So many of them are trying to say, oh, your account password needs to be changed. Please click to log in and update your stuff, or, so many of these things that are being very clever. And, if you know what you're looking for, you can stay away from them. But I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are naive, and it must be working because they keep sending these things. They're spending a lot of time and effort sending these emails, whatever they're trying to get from you. So got to be careful. Oh my gosh. Scott Carson has posted a comment that Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank lost $400,000 on a phishing scam where they sent wiring instructions to her assistant. And so the assistant wired out $400,000.
That's crazy.
Ouch.
Wow.
Well, I can understand someone at Barbara Corcoran's level maybe not sending out all of her wires on her own. She has someone doing it, but boy, that's scary. It was an amount that was close to a property that
Wow.
they were buying. So whoever sent that got lucky, I guess, huh? That amount of money happened to be a similar amount to what they were expecting to pay. Oh, faked the title
Wow.
company logo on that property.
What a
Ouch.
great job with that
Well,
phishing scam.
that's,
Wow, that's
boy, I'll
unfortunate.
tell you though, but if the interesting thing is, if you've wired the money to someone's account and it's a US bank account, there's somebody associated with that account. There are banking rules. It's not like you sent Bitcoin to some place, right? I'm hoping they got the person and recovered it. But ouch. We're all being preyed on. It's very sad. And Scott says they see a lot of fake title company phishing scams in real estate. I think that that's unfortunately true. You see the DocuSign stuff too? Wow. I'll tell you, the DocuSign one to me was kind of next level. I'd never seen a DocuSign phishing scam before. Now, I mean, keep in mind, I'm not trying to denigrate or what's the word, defame DocuSign. I think they're a good company and there's nothing wrong with DocuSign itself. This is somebody that was illegally hijacking DocuSign's identity, somebody pretending they're DocuSign when they're not. So boy, beware. Isn't it amazing we do everything electronically these days? And even printing out a contract, signing it and scanning it and sending it back to someone, we don't do very often. Everybody says, oh, I'll send you a DocuSign. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that, Scott. I hope that's helpful to everybody. Let's see. Any other thoughts or questions before top of the hour when I have to sign off because I have another thing I have to do? Let me know.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. Let's see.
No questions on social media currently.
Okay, great. All right. Well, then, you know what? I'm gonna wrap it up and have time for a restroom break before my next appointment. So sorry if that's too TMI for some of you. But anyway, hey, thank you for being here and showing up. Truly appreciate it. Happy to provide you some value today. Look forward to doing it next week as well. Tracy will be back next week.
Yep.
Yay. So look forward to that. And until then, everybody have a great week. We'll see you on what will that be? The 15th, I think.
15th.
Take care, everyone.